our science, page 72. We're moving on to our next habitat. Last week, we discussed the pond habitat. Anybody remembers some things about the pond habitat? Okay, what you got?
The biggest predators was probably like the beaver.
Yeah, well, the beaver he wasn't a predator, but we did kind of say maybe he was at the top of the food chain because no one was hunting him. That turtles will eat a lot of the animals inside of the pond. The turtle is probably the top predator in the pond habitat.
The water can get wider and deeper.
Yes, beavers, their dam helps the pond in several ways. Okay, good. So that's good. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the forest habitat. Usually a forest habitat is there's a lot of ponds near a forest habitat. So they're kind of close to one another, but let's talk about the forest habitat. Okay, Kenley, you can come read on 72. Okay.
The ocean and pond habitats were water habitats. The forest is a land habitat. What very large lake do you think the forest habitat depends on? Trees. Forest habitat animals like bears, owls, and chipmunks depend on trees for food and shelter. Trees also give off plenty of oxygen for people and animals to breathe. Do you think a chipmunk needs a lot of water to live? Streams, rivers, lakes, and ponds are ways God has provided. Water for animals who live in the forest. Do you think that water in these places would be salty or fresh?
Okay.
Yeah.
So the first two habitats we covered were water habitats. This is our first land habitat that will be covered. Okay, so a forest habitat, most of the forest is covered in trees. Majority of the forest, just like when we talked about the ocean, most of the earth is covered by ocean's water. Well, forest habitat, majority of the habitat is filled with trees, just trees. So of course we know some forest animals like owls and chipmunks and bears, right? And they depend on the trees not only for food, but for shelter as well. The trees also give off a lot of oxygen so that the people and animals are able to breathe. Okay, so then we talked about the water. So of course we know in the pond habitat there's several streams, lakes, rivers, and ponds. And that's the way that the animals are able to drink water, right? Because a lot of the animals that live in the forest habitat, they will get a drink of water from either the lake, the river, or the pond. So do you think they will be fresh water or salt water? Fresh water, for sure. Okay. 73, space and food. Yeah.
Study like every forest to be the exact size that the animals living in it would need. Some forests are so large that many animals can live there. These forests can cover many miles of land. There are many predators in the forest. A bear can eat both plant and meat. The bear is a fierce predator. What makes the bear fierce?
Okay. So of course we know, like we said, yes, most of the forest is covered in trees, but the forest is still very large. And of course, because it's large, a lot of animals are able to live inside of a forest habitat. And because there's so many animals that live in a forest habitat, the forest has to be large. A forest can cover miles and miles of land. So the food, of course, we know there's several predators inside of the forest habitat. The bear would be the top of the food chain in the forest habitat because no one is hunting the bear. The bear is the top predator in a forest, and he has several options of food to pick from, right? He can eat wolves, he can eat foxes, he can eat bunnies. The bear can hunt pretty much anything. No other animal is hunting a bear. The bear is usually hunting other animals. Okay? So let's talk about what makes the bear so fierce as a predator. His claws, of course. Okay, 74, Faith. Yeah, that's the 4 things that happen.
The owl,
Water shows.
the owl is also a predator in the forest. One owl family eats hundreds of mice and rats. Each year, the owls keep the mice and rats from spreading distance that could harm other animals and people. Chipmunks eat nuts and seeds. Do you think they would be called predators or prey? How do these 3 animals keep the forest habitat balanced?
Okay. So the owl is also a predator in the forest as well because the owl will eat several mice and rats that live inside of the forest habitat. They can eat like hundreds of rats, in a short time span. Okay, and then we have like chipmunks. They eat the nuts and the seeds, right? And so they are prey though. Chipmunks are hunted. They only eat nuts and seeds, but they are hunted by other animals. So there's an example of a food chain here on 74. You have the bear. The bear will hunt the wolf will hunt the fox will hunt the bunny, and we know that the bunny will eat a plant. So that's an example. Then you have the owl. The owl will probably eat a rat, mice. They usually eat a plant. So there's different forms of food chains that could be built inside of a forest habitat. You could have the wolf. The wolf could hunt a bunny. The bunny could hunt the plant. Fox hunts the bunny. Chipmunk. It's several ways you could show, but the top of the food chain would probably be, not probably, it is a bear, and owls also are at the top as well because no other animals are hunting owls. They're usually hunting, and owls can eat like deer. They can hunt like foxes as well. It can happen. All right, let's talk about the shelter, Carson. 75. The shelter in forest habitat.
They go wherever they are. Many animals look closely in the forest. We can find many different kinds of animals of animal homes. Some animals live in holes in trees. Some animals build nests in trees.
Okay, so the shelter, of course, we know that there's a lot of places for the animals to live. They can live in the trees, right? And so a lot of the birds will usually build their nests in trees. Some of them will live inside of the holes of trees. Okay, and some, it just depends. Some of them build nests, some of them have holes. Let's talk about some more. 76, Joshua, 76.
Chipmunks dig tunnels or burrows in the ground. Chipmunk started digging a hole, but he closed it up with dirt. The opening his used his hiding by tall grass. He story he's he stories nuts.
Stores.
He stores nuts and seeds to eat during the cold winter. Chipmunks hibernate in their burrows during the winter. Their body temperature lowers and their organs slow down so that they can fall into a deep winter sleep.
Okay, so some animals live in the trees, but some of them live in the ground. They will dig holes and burrows in the ground, and that will be a chipmunk. Bunnies also do the same thing as well. They dig like burrows and they live inside of the ground. Okay, and so they not only live in there, but they'll store food for the winter in there as well, because some animals in the forest hibernate. And hibernating is when animals go into a deep sleep. Bears do that. Chipmunks also hibernate as well. Their temperature will lower, their organs slow down, and then they fall into a deep sleep in the winter. That's why you really don't see a lot of those animals in the winter. You'll start to see them again in spring. Yeah, like them. Yeah, so some animals they live in the trees. Some of them though they have tunnels and burrows that they dig in the ground. Okay, 77, Dennis.
Some animals, like bears, build dens in the ground near roots of an old tree. Bears hibernate but do not fall into a deep winter sleep. Their body temperature does not change very much. This helps them wake up quickly if they or their cubs are in danger.
So some animals, like bears, they will build a den in the ground. It's usually near caves, that's how they'll build their home. And so bears do hibernate, but they don't go into a deep winter sleep. And also bears use that time to have their babies as well when they go into the winter season. Okay, so this is the forest habitat. And so it's a really large habitat, a lot of trees. The forest is filled with several trees. The trees give off oxygen to not only us, but the trees also give the animals that live in that habitat oxygen. A lot of the water that the animals from that habitat drink from are like ponds, rivers, lakes, and streams. That's where they'll drink from. It's fresh water. And so the top predator in the forest will probably be a bear and an owl. Usually they are hunting other animals. Animals aren't hunting them. And we know that all food chains start with a plant. So there's several other predators though. You have foxes that are predators, wolves that are predators as well. They're not the only ones, but the bear is the top because no one is hunting the bear. Okay. And so also the homes, there's several places of home where homes could be made for animals in the trees. Some of them dig tunnels or burrows in the ground, and then bears, they build a den. Okay. And a lot of the animals in the forest will hibernate as well. So this is the forest habitat. All right, let's go ahead and move on to our social studies. We'll talk about some pioneers this week. Okay, page 88. What? We didn't get to that. Okay, social studies. Okay, that's good. So then all your work needs to be like that. You know what I'm talking about? Like you spelling, all your work needs to be in cursive. All right, page 88, America's Pioneers in your social studies. Page 88. That's because you're talking too much. You need to sit down. So stop hurting. I just say that, so nobody should be doing that. Hmm? I'm printing worksheets right now. That's what I'm doing. Yeah, I'm not gonna look. It should be ready, Bailey. All right, so America's pioneers. So guys, if you remember last week, we finished our lesson on the War of 1812. This was the war that America fought with England again, right? And America had victory in this battle. They had victory, and this was a good thing for America because finally they were now ready to stand as their own country, right? Remember, they were under the control of England. They fought the first war, they became free. Then they had issues with England again, and they fought the second war with England, the War of 1812, which we discussed last week with Francis Scott Key and Dr. Beans. But, you know, they had victory, and so now America, they can grow as a country now, as the United States of America. They have the opportunity now to grow. Okay, so we're going to talk about some people that are called the pioneers, and they're called pioneers because they were the first to do something that changed America. If you remember, most of America was on the East Coast, right? That's where a lot of them came from England. That's also where the colonies were, on the East Coast. So this is the East Coast here. A lot of the states, the colonies were here. But as you can see, there's so much more of America that needs to be discovered, right? So when they found the 13 colonies, they were only here. Remember, the colonies are only in this area. So what they decided was that they wanted to start traveling west because they were like, there's so much more land in the country. We want to see what's going on that side. We want to find out what can we build on that side. So they had these people called pioneers who were the first to start to travel west, okay? And they began to pave the way for others to travel west because this part of the world was growing and it was growing fast. And they were like, we need more space. Nothing was discovered yet. Now we have all of this, but at that time, there was none of this. It was just nothing, okay? So let's talk about that this week. All right, Dennis, you have read? Do you have read last, Dennis? Avaya, did you read or not yet? And I need your screen on.
No.
Okay, page 88.
The United States were growing. More people sailed to America looking for a better life. More and more states were beginning adding to our country. Big cities such as Boston, Philadelphia, and New York were growing bigger and bigger. Some men felt crowded and wanted to move on. They wanted to be surrounded by trees and land instead of people and buildings. They did not want to be fenced in, but where could they go? There was unsettled
Unsettled.
land, unsettled land in the West, some people began to talk about moving there.
Okay, so good. So yes, America is growing and more people began to come to America for a better life. But the problem with that is the states that they were coming to became overpopulated, meaning there was way too many people living in those states, right? And some people felt like it was really crowded. And also it was not good for so many people to live in one area at that one time because it caused a lot of problems. Some people were sick. Some people got sick because of it. You know, some people got sick because of it. Some people didn't have a place to stay because it was so overcrowded. So they decided that it was time to maybe go west and try to find some new land because it was very overcrowded in the colonies area. Like Boston, Philly, and New York, they were like the cities with like the most people, and it was overcrowded. They didn't want to be just settled in one city altogether. So also there was word that there was gold in California, right? In 1848. And so a lot of people heard about that gold that was all the way in California. So some people decided to go west, not only to like make new land, but to also see about that gold that they say that they had in California. And so New York had grown the most out of all the cities. And like I said, it's not good because it was overcrowded. People didn't have really good places to stay. And diseases spread easily during that time. And they didn't have medicine and doctors like we have now. So a lot of times when people got sick during that time, they would often die because they couldn't get treated fast enough, right? So yeah, it was time for them to maybe some people to say, let's go ahead and go west. Okay. All right, let's look at 89. Back to you, Kenlyn. 89.
Hardly anything was known about the West. There were no towns. There were no doctors or stores. There were no years to uphold laws. There were many wild animals. It wasn't a new
Frontier.
frontier. The brave there to move westward. They were called pioneers. A pioneer is a person who can first and clears the way for the others who will follow. The first pioneers were men who traveled alone. Most of these pioneers walked somewhere. Had moved the hands of things they owned. What was a pioneer man his gun. With his gun, he could shoot his dinner and protect himself from danger. These pioneers prepared the way from old families to the west.
Okay. So they didn't really know much about going west. Some people were brave enough to decide to travel west. They were like, we don't know what's there. There's really nothing there, right? There were no towns, no stores, doctors, none of that. They didn't have any of that in the West at that time. All they had was wild animals. And they were like, you know what? It's a new frontier, but we're still going to do it. We're going to travel west and we're going to go and we're going to discover and figure out as we go. And so some of these people, the pioneers, they were not afraid to go forward and figure out what was in the West. They decided to go. Okay. And again, a pioneer is someone who goes first and clears the way. And so that's what they were going to do. They were going to go first and clear the way and figure out what was in the West. Okay. And so the first set of pioneers were people who traveled alone. A lot of times they would travel by themselves and they would travel alone. That's how the first set of pioneers traveled. They would be alone by themselves. No one came with them. That's why I was even more so like, wow, because of the fact that they were able to, leave and go by themselves. And so some of them would have mules with them, which is a donkey. They would have that animal with them, and the donkey would carry things for them. Of course, they would pack some things. So what was their main thing they would pack would be their gun, right? They needed their gun for several reasons. To hunt for animals, right? If anything tried to attack them, they had to protect themselves. So their number one possession was their gun. And so what the pioneers would do is they would travel west first by themselves. And then after they would travel and they figured it out, they would come back to the East Coast, the colonies, and then they would go and tell everyone what they found. And then they would sometimes come back and bring their family. Okay? Yeah. So page 90, let's talk about some of the first pioneers.
This came down to
Oh, yeah.
in 17.
Cherokee.
Cherokee Indians that at that time, Kentucky was the wilderness of thick woods. How can a family travel through the wilderness? Some would need to pave the way. While many Americans were fighting the war for independence, Daniel became one of America's first great opponents. Led by Daniel, 30 men would axe chop a rough path for Virginia to the mountain of Kentucky was through the path, through the forest, and over mountains became known as the Wilderness Road. As the years passed, thousands of pioneers families traveled past.
Okay. So in 1775, the land that made up Kentucky, remember there's not really any states. We know the states now, but at that time, we didn't know those states. So where Kentucky is, that was just a lot of land, and it was a lot of thick, like forest, wilderness. And so what they would do is they would usually go in and make a path first, a path that you could take that would help you to kind of travel through and journey through wherever you were trying to go, right? So Daniel Boone was one of the first pioneers who paved the way. He chopped a path from Virginia all the way to Kentucky that helped a lot of people travel to start their travels west, because like I said, it was all forest, right? And so he made a path from Virginia to Kentucky, and a lot of people took that path, and that led them to the west. It led them to go there as well. Okay, and so it was known as Wilderness Road. And so a lot of people who started to travel west, they knew that they had to take Wilderness Road in order to get there. Okay, so when Daniel was just a boy, he met the Native Americans and they taught him how to hunt, and he became a really good hunter. That's why he was good with the outdoors as well. He knew how to hunt and he was used to being outdoors. So he was one of the first people to pave a path to help people travel west. 91, Faith?
Thousands of families wanted to be
Pioneers.
pioneers. They traveled across the Great Plains. Many even traveled to the other side of Rocky Mountains. Many families decided to travel together in wagon trains. Together, they could help each other in times of trouble. A wagon master was chosen. He was a man who had made a long trip before he knew the dangers of trips. He knew where to hunt for food and find water along the way. It was his job to safely lead the families of the wagon train on their journey.
Yeah, okay. All right, so yes, so then like I said, after they would usually make the first journey west, they would see what was on the west side, and then they would come back, and then they would get their families and bring their families back to, with them on the next part of the journey. They would take their families and they would bring them with them to go and live there, right? So they really started to pave the way. They really started the path initially to just see what was on that side. And once they saw what was on that side, they would go and get their families and bring their families back. And a lot of times the families would travel together in groups in these wagon trains. If you look on 91, that's an example of a wagon train. See how they have like the horse pulling the buggy? That's how a lot of them would travel. A wagon master was chosen. He would be the leader. He was usually the one, a pioneer who went first, right? And he would usually lead the people. He would tell them when to stop, when to go, where to turn. He already knew the route to the west, so he would lead them back that way. He knew the dangers. He knew all of that. Okay. And so also they had to make sure they packed the right amount of food because it was a tough journey. And like we said, there were no stores, no towns, none of that. They had to really pack the right things in order to have a good trip. Okay. And so the route that they took over the Rocky Mountains was called the Oregon Trail. And it was another path that was paved for them to travel. Okay. And so it's estimated that like 350 to 500,000 people left the colonies area, the East Coast, and traveled west. So yeah, a lot of people. Okay, 92, let's talk about what they had to pack to prepare for the journey.
Because there were no stores along the way, pioneers had to pack their supplies. If their food ran out, they would starve. If they did not pack warm clothing and blankets, they might become sick. Food, warm clothing, and blankets could not be forgotten. Bags of flour and cornmeal, as well as coffee and salted slabs of bacon, were loaded into the wagons. Pioneers also packed kettles and coffee pots for cooking over the fire.
Thank you. All right, so to prepare for the journey, like I said, there were no stores. So you know how like if you go on vacation and you forget something, y'all can run to like Walmart or something and get it, right? If you've been on vacation, you went out of town, if you had to get something. Yeah, it wasn't like that for the pioneers. They forgot something important. They just kind of had to do without it because there were no stores. So they had to make sure when they left the East, they packed everything so that they would be prepared for this long journey to the West. Okay. So they had to also make sure to pack the right amount of clothing, blankets, because it got cold in the West, and they had to make sure that they were warm. Okay, they couldn't forget those things. They had bags of flour, and of course, packing flour and cornmeal is good because you can make several things with flour, right? That's what you bake with. Flour, cornmeal, you can make cornbread, all kinds of other things as well. They would pack coffee, slabs of bacon, which was meat for them. They would also have kettles and coffee pots that they would use to cook with. You didn't read about them. Yeah, the whole thing. I'm gonna read it. Pioneers packed axes and nails, right? Of course, to build because they were moving west. There was nothing, so they would have to build their own homes. So of course, they packed all the supplies they needed to build their homes: axes, nails, all of that. They took plows to break up the ground because they would do their own, they would make their own food, they would grow their own food with their gardens, right? And so they had to make sure to pack everything the right way. And they would also bring some animals with them. Some of them would bring chickens, some of them bring cows, different animals. Yes, chickens give you eggs and meat. Yep. And so they would bring a cow because the cow could give them milk, but also meat as well. Okay. So they had to make sure to pack all the right things, all the right food, blankets to keep them warm, food so that they wouldn't starve, right pots so they could cook their food, right meat, vegetables, all of that. They had to pack supplies to build their houses, supplies to start their garden. They had to make sure to pack right. Okay, 93 minutes. You got it, Dennis? 93? Okay, 93. Okay. Okay.
Wagons or other things. Pioneer humans had to give away most of the pretty bushes and furniture. They had to carefully pick them up with special things they could take them with them. Often they took their favorite books so they could teach their children to read. The men had to choose the animals to pull their wagons. Because an ox is much stronger than a horse, oxen were usually chosen instead of horses.
Okay. And so, yeah, so the thing also about them traveling west was that everything that they had in the east, they usually had to give it all up. They would sell everything because they couldn't pack all of that, right? They would only have to pack the essentials that they needed, food, clothing, and their animals. They couldn't pack their furniture and all of that, right? They couldn't pack any of those things. They had to pick and choose the things that they would pack because the buggies couldn't, those wagons couldn't pull all of that. So they had to make sure they packed right, and they also packed what they needed. And so ox usually pulled their wagons because oxen are stronger than horses, right? So sometimes, so there are cases where people tried to take like pianos and things like that, and they had to end up dumping it whenever they got to the mountains part of traveling west. They had to dump it because the wagon couldn't pull, it couldn't go up the mountain with that heavy thing. So they had to make sure they packed light. They packed the right things, but they packed light, not bringing so many things at one time. Okay. All right. So that's the pioneers. That's what they did. Those pioneers were the first people to pave the way for others to start traveling west. So now America will start to grow in the sense of more states being added because we were on just the East Coast with the colonies. Now they're states, but now they're starting to travel west. Daniel Boone made different paths for them to travel on. And the people now they're getting the pioneers went back to get their families. They traveled as groups to go west. Okay. All right. So that's it for social studies, guys, on the pioneers and their journey towards expanding America by traveling west. Next week, we'll read a story about some people who will travel west. All right. So that's it for science and social studies, guys. Let's go over math. That'll be our last lesson. And we're done after math. Do right, be honest, and truthful. Okay. Yes. All right. So yesterday, guys, we learned how to tell time to the minute. The exact minute. All right, so let's go ahead and practice some time. So guys, remember, we know that our numbers that are on the clock like this are our fives, and all the numbers are in between. We start counting by ones. Whatever five we just passed, we just start counting by ones after that. So let's practice a couple of them. Okay, got this one. Okay, what time do you have, Dennis?
6.
Oh, I didn't hear it muted. 6 what?
6:28.
Not 8. 8 would be right here. So he gonna get it. 6:28 would be here. So that's 20, and then count by 1. You got it now?
6:23.
Yep, 6:23. So guys, if we are just waking up, stop it. Stop. Would it be AM or PM? If we're just waking up, Dennis, AM or PM? AM. Yep. Stop. Okay. Next one. Well, it must not hurt that bad. It was right down on the floor. Yeah. Okay, my time. 3:52. 3:52. If we are leaving school, would it be AM or PM? Yeah. Come on, get it right there for him and give it to her. Okay, next one. That's not. Carson? 7:07. If I am about to eat dinner, would it be AM or PM? I'm talking to him. Yeah. Okay, good. All right, so that's how we tell time to the minute. All right, guys, let's tell the difference between a second, a minute, and an hour, okay? So when we talk about a second, does anyone know what a second means? Like, it's pretty fast, right? Very fast. What are some things we could do in 1 second? Like, just in 1 second, it could be done fast. We can blink in a second, right? If we blink, that's a second. What are some other things we could do in 1 second? Can we jump? You can jump in a second. Just one jump in a second. Okay, anything else we can do in 1 second? You can move your hand fast. You can say clap. Let's say clap. We can clap. I know one. Right? We can snap. Snap as well. So when we think of a second, we know that a second is usually very fast, right? So I wouldn't say I can take a bath in a second, right? No, that wouldn't be possible. That's So, okay, just understanding the difference of time. Second is pretty quick. Now let's talk about a minute. What are some things we can do within a minute? Within a minute. Minute is 60 seconds altogether. What's something we can do in a minute? You can take. No. I mean, you need several minutes for that. I know. You can brush your teeth. You can brush your teeth in a minute, right? Okay, what else? Wash your face in a minute as well. Oh, I know. Okay, Dennis, what you got? Something we can do in a minute. Huh?
Run outside. Run outside.
Well, you could walk, let's say walk outside. Like you walk outside the house, yeah. Yeah, a push-up. You can do some push-ups in a minute. Okay, Joshua, you have something you can do in a minute? Something that can be done in one.
Going to, going to app.
Say that again.
Go inside.
Okay, you can go inside. Okay, so that's like a minute. We know things we can do in a minute. I wouldn't say I will read a book in a minute, right? No, you can't read a book in a minute. That's impossible. Okay, so now let's talk about an hour. What are some things we can do in an hour? That's a longer amount of time. Read. Okay, what else can we do like within an hour? Do chores in the house, yeah. Okay, Dennis, what else?
Stay outside for
I can't hear. I can't hear him. Say it again.
stay outside for an hour.
Play outside. Yep, you can play. Parents can give you an hour to play outside. Right. Okay. Let's say do homework. Do homework in an hour. Joshua, what else can
Watch TV.
we can watch TV? Our parents can give us an hour to watch TV. Okay. What else? Who? Oh, like a turtle can move. Yeah. Say a turtle cross the street within an hour. Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying too. Okay, good. So I just wanted to make sure we understand the difference in time. So we know that a second is usually quick. A minute is like, it's kind of quick, but there's still some more things we can get done within a minute, but an hour, it's usually longer. We can take a little bit of time, okay? All right, let's read the temperature. Well, how many degrees? It depends where you're coming from, but not coming in. Okay, what's my temperature? 2,
84.
80, 86 degrees, pretty hot day. See your coins combined in your book. So, so remember, it's important to know how to count. 25, 25, 50, 75, $1. We know how to count tens and dimes. All right. So first amount, we have 2 quarters, 3 dimes, 2 nickels, and 2 pennies. Dennis, you want to count this one for us?
25, 50,
Uh-huh.
60, 70, 80,
Uh-huh.
85, 90,
Uh-huh.
91, 92, 92.
91, 92. Good. 92 cents. Okay, next one. Carson. 25.
55.
The nickel, so 65. Oh, 65, I'm sorry. 35, 45, 55, 65, yeah, and then it goes to the nickel. No, 25, no, oh, okay, yeah, I see. Yeah, okay, I see. All right, so 25, I wrote it wrong, so 35. Yes, y'all, it went from 25 to the tens. What y'all talking about? 25, 35, 45, 55, 65. That's not a nickel, that's a dime. It's 10 more. 70 is 70 and then ones. 70. 1. I think y'all are saying fives, but it's not fives. It went from a 25 to a 10. 10 more than 25 is 35. That's a dime. That's 10 more than 25. Yeah, didn't know it. Yeah, it was that. All right, so let's go ahead and round out. 38, we got 30 and 40, which 10 would it be closer to? 38, 30 and 40? 40, 43, which 10? 40 or 50, which 10? 40 and then 79, 70 or 80, which 10 would it be closer to? 70 or 80 is one away from 80. All right, awesome. All right, guys, so that's it. That's all we have to cover on today. I think we did all of our lessons. Yes, we did. Y'all have a good afternoon, guys. I'll see you tomorrow for our Bible, okay? Bye-bye.